Today, we're going to explore Aggregate Event Impact, a feature which removes the friction of aggregating events, enabling you to quickly correlate demand to events. Most companies know that events have an impact on demand, but they haven't incorporated event data into their demand forecasting yet. There are a couple of steps you will need to take to do this properly. The first step is to prove that events cause an impact to your business. Correlating events to your demand is crucial, but also very time consuming and very easy to get wrong. Looking at individual spikes often leads to too small of a data set to accurately correlate. By doing it at an aggregate level, a data science team will be looking at enough volume of spike days to prove out the correlations between demand and events. Let's jump into Control Center to go through an example. As a quick reminder, Control Center is your central dashboard to search and explore for events within PredictHQ. Let's go ahead and search for events in the city of Austin, Texas. We'll start by looking at all of the events in the area, including all ranks, and for the time period of May 2019. Here, you'll be able to see that there are over 2,700 events during this time period. You can sort by the ranks, look at details, and more. Just as active events can have a significant impact on demand positively, canceled or postponed events can impact demand negatively. For example, the COVID-19 pandemic has caused the cancellations and postponements of thousands of events globally. With PredictHQ, you have the ability to view all events that are active, canceled, or have been postponed. This enables our customers to stay as informed as possible. We can also look at this in a raw data form. You can use Data Exporter, which is also found in Control Center. Here, you can export the data into either a CSV or JSON file type. Let's say now we want to look at a couple of months worth of data from 2019 in Austin. We'll select May 1st through October 31st. The output would look something a little bit like this. If you're familiar with our data, you'll know that the structure and the schema are always consistent, whether that be within our UI, our data exporter, or the API endpoint. Let's scroll over and take a look at our ranks. Adding them up together is impossible because they're on a logarithmic scale. Even if you are incredibly familiar with our event data, being able to sum up and group our events by category and by their impact is really difficult. So why is this important? Aggregating events is a crucial first step to be able to take your demand and correlate it to the amount of people in a given area. This is exactly why Aggregate Event Impact comes in. It takes all of the ranks of the events and accurately aggregates them. What does this look like in practice? You have the ability to look up a particular area. Let's use Austin again, during a given time period. Let's say May through October again, and you'll be able to see the peak days based on impact for the total number of events during that time period. In its most raw form, you'll be able to convert this data into something a little bit more palatable. This is still showcasing Austin event data. We're just looking at the aggregated attendance per day, which you'll see in the column labeled impact. So on May 4th, you'll see that there were 424,000 plus people that were in the city of Austin for events. Whereas on the 8th, there were only about 18,000 people. But on September 21st, you'll see that there was another high traffic day with over 280,000 people. This allows us to get a sense for how many people will be in aggregate in the city of Austin on particular days. Now, this is a simplified version. If you want to break up the impact by categories, you can also do that. If we jump back into the Control Center, you can visualize aggregate event impact by selecting this icon over here on the left-hand side. This is highly valuable if you want to be able to produce a quick visualization for the aggregate impact for your team or for key stakeholders. It also makes the tool highly accessible for non-technical folks. Let's keep working with the example from before. As mentioned, you can filter by category. In this case, we're going to view expos, concerts, and festivals for the city of Austin. You can quickly search on these peak days to check out what individual events that are contributing to this high number. You'll see that if we take a look at May 4th, there was a couple of individual events contributing to this. So let's take a look. There was a Pecan Street Festival, a couple of concerts, and an expo. So that was based off of the categories we selected. But you can see that all of these events are pretty highly ranked. So they're bringing large crowds of people to Austin. Now, most companies will know about the big events like South by Southwest and Austin City Limits, which will definitely be peak days. But a lot of the value that Aggregate Event Impact gives is the ability to look at days where the aggregation of events brings the same amount of people to an area that these single larger events do, just that it's more unknown to the general population. So for example, May 4th. Similar to what we mentioned before, you can also sort by event status. whether that is active, canceled, or postponed events. So, for example, in March 2020, in the United States, there were thousands of event postponements due to COVID-19. You can see on March 28th, there were a high number of postponements. Now, we've covered how you can access aggregate event impact via data exporter and how to visualize the data through Control Center. It's also available via our API endpoint. Let's walk through what this looks like in Postman. Very similar to how you would run an API request with the raw data, you can submit an API call to see the aggregate. You'll see that things are not broken out by the event, like a typical API request for PHQ data, but they're broken out by the day itself. So here we're looking at May 4th again in 2019 in the city of Austin, and you'll see a count of 76 total events that took place that day. That's aggregating to about 424 plus thousand people, which is the number we saw earlier in the impact spreadsheet. Now let's take a look at the example for postponed events. We can check out March 2020 in the United States as we did in Control Center. You can see the aggregate impact here totals more than 10,000 postponed events during that time period. This means our customers know exactly when events are postponed and when they are rescheduled to ensure customers are prepared for the change. The value that the aggregate event impact feature gives is that you're able to start looking at what is impacting your business in terms of event data and being able to look at what days impact you the most. You can then dive deeper into the events on those specific days. The next step would be to take the output of the endpoint and use this to train your demand forecasting model. PredictHQ removes the friction of trying to correlate event data to your demand data and enables you to properly correlate demand to events faster.